They're trying to do too many things at one time, but there is always one that you're like, oh, this kid's on the ground the whole time, because they're just trying to play in like overdrive versus like just, all right, calm down, take a second, and do a little bit less. But yeah, you usually see it in the first practice right away, like who's going to be the ones that are going to take the whole fall to learn the hard way, like how to calm
Yeah.
down to play at college.
Yeah. I'm back. Another great guest. I'm just putting them together. The lacrosse space obviously excites me. And then we have another one today. So our guest today, 2017 GNAC Women's Lacrosse Coach of the Year, also 2017 GNAC Champion at Johnson's and Wells, 2024 SSC Women's Coach of the Year, voted on by her peers, by the coaches in her conference. And also last year, 2024, her St. Leo Lions finished number 9 in the D2 IWLCA rankings out of 114 total teams. We welcome Coach Caitlin Hansen. Coach, how you doing, Coach Hansen?
I'm good, Preston. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you've done this thing, like taking teams to the top and just climbing this ladder. You've been really good at that. Just like, how does that, at the end of the day, because coaching is all about the process.
Mhm.
When you get to that process at the end of it, how does that make you feel? Like, you look at it, I read all these accolades and you're like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're ever really done because we haven't won it yet. But I do think that it is great to see when, especially in my previous job, when I started a program, it was a pretty quick rise, which was really awesome to see. And I think it just shows like what recruiting can do. If you bring in good players, you get better
Hmm.
faster. But I also think, um, in coming to St. Leo, it was a slower climb just because the level of play is so strong in this conference. But to be able to be making some, big moves down here has been really, really exciting. Took me too long, I think, but
Okay.
it's been nice to see it for sure.
Heading into your 9th season at St.
Mhm.
Leo, and for all the athletes out there, St. Leo, Dade City,
Mhm.
by Pasco High School.
Yes.
If you're, let's just say, central Tampa, it'll probably take a little less than an hour depending on traffic to get there.
Mhm.
So St. Leo, for everybody out there, is a local school. They play D2 lacrosse. They're also in the same conference as University of Tampa. Okay, so we just want to put that out there, that this is a local program that has
Yeah.
been climbing year in and year out. This past season, you finished, I think, number 4 in the conference. Am I correct, Coach?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
I
Yes.
think it was number
Yeah.
4 in the conference. So, St. Leo, for those who don't know, is a formidable program. And we want the young ladies around here to know that there is a really good program, yet an hour away from downtown Tampa. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's just start there. Now, 12 seasons total coaching, or 12 seasons as the head coach, as a head
Mhm.
coach, correct?
Mhm. Yes.
With I'll round up 64% winning percentage in 12 seasons. At St. Leo, you've won 60% of your games over 8 seasons. All right. So you're winning, you're doing a pretty good job. Um, how have you become so consistent with your staff, and has the philosophy changed?
Yeah, I think that one of the interesting parts is my staff has kind of been, we've changed. We're on a GA model for our assistant coaches right now. So every 2 years, there's somebody new coming in. And I think that's
Okay.
been good to keep things fresh because they're a lot younger than me. They're playing at different programs. They are way more savvy on, just kind of the stuff. Like I'll use a draw stick for an example. That was not a thing that
Okay.
existed when I was playing college lacrosse, but they've
Hmm.
used them, they've seen them, they know what works. And I think it's interesting to pick their brains, as younger players who've just done it, and they
Right.
kinda help keep us evolving. And, one of our big models has always been, and this was something we talk about with our assistants, is that, we're not probably a school that's gonna be like a transfer portal central school, like, we wanna develop talent, and I think
Yeah.
if you play them as freshmen and you bring them in and you work with them for 4 years, by the time they're seniors, they should be able to compete, against anybody. And I
Yeah.
think that has helped us stay consistent, whereas it's not a revolving door of every year relying on new kids coming in, that are like quick hitters. It's trying to
Yeah.
build that from the ground up with your freshman class when they come into campus.
And that seems like that will do really good and wonders for team culture.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
How does that grow and foster good team culture?
Yeah, I 100% agree. We just had our parents' weekend, and most of it's led by our senior parents. All of them have been here for a long time. So they're all really good friends. So they're coming into town and they're taking care of each other's daughters when they're in town. And I think it's just everybody really has that family feel from the parents to the players. And I think that's always great for culture, because when you're all on the same page and have the same goals, and you care about each other, you can't help but be successful.
Being the head coach, ultimately your job is to win games, but you wear many different hats, obviously.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to be like that extra mother, or maybe even a taxi to take girls to and from different places. A mentor, obviously. Are there some things that coaching people just don't understand? Like the outsider, you'll never understand this about coaching young women. Is there anything that like jumps out of the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, mine have asked me before, "So what do you do when we're not at practice?" And it's like, everything else for you. Like, we're planning we're planning the travel, we're making sure there's food for you at the travel, making sure there's, healthy stuff in the locker room for people to eat, monitoring grades, helping them facilitate meetings with professors if that's what's necessary. Pretty much every aspect of their life, we have some hand in, and we have 46 players on our team right now. So that's
Mm,
split 46 ways. Some need a little more help than others depending on the week, but all of those things, like, in even little things. We had a player, she got into a car accident the other day and we're the first call to
mm,
come over. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm far away from home. Who do I call? Okay, we'll call coach because she can then at least come and tell me what to do. So I think in
mm.
in those things that people might not even realize that we're doing, that's a big part of it. And that helps with the culture too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then it makes those parents feel a lot more comfortable sending their kids away if they're coming from out of state to
Yes,
your program.
definitely.
Um, this past season was the program's first postseason win. And then the theme of this thing is just you're just climbing the ladder. You're climbing this
Right.
mountain. You're climbing this mountain. How did your first initial reaction to that postseason win in program's history was what?
It was really exciting, and, this past season, we did it on the road at Lynn, and that was a really, exciting day for the girls. It came down like a dramatic, last goal, finish, won the draw to seal the game, so I think, that is really great for momentum because obviously the goal is to win games, but to get more lacrosse and spend more time together is really a part of the goal too. And that's all you have to get that by winning postseason games, and we're not gonna get to the ultimate goal of winning a championship without winning the first one, so that's been exciting. It's been a few good years, with, a really talented senior class of getting closer and closer. So now we're really hopeful that, these postseason wins will turn into NCAA selection this year.
Who was the big dog in that senior class that you're losing or that
Uh,
you lost?
so I have 13 meaning that just graduated?
That just
Yeah,
graduated.
we
Yes.
have a player, her name was Maria Palumba. She was our program's first ever first team All-American. She was a middie.
Nice.
She graduated as the conference's leader in career draw controls. So she
Right.
was a huge factor for us on both ends of the field and throughout the entire midfield. And I think she was the freshman of the year when she was a freshman. So we have some younger players that are stepping into her role this year, but you can't account for the 4 years of experience that she had last
Right.
season. But yeah, she's a big loss for us for sure.
Who is expected to be the big dog this year in this senior class?
Yeah, so we have a couple different options, and on all ends of the field, which is nice. It's a more balanced class. We have a goalie. Her name is Jess Harklerode. She's been a player for us since her freshman year. She was another rookie of the year her freshman season. We expect her to really be a leader for us. This is her third year as a captain, so she's
Mhm.
kind of it for us in all facets. Offensively, we return two all conference players in Jan and Nuss and Holly Hill, so they'll have an impact. Defensively, we return all of our starting defenders from last year. Three of them are seniors, one's a junior. So we're feeling pretty good about what we're returning. And in the midfield, we have two senior middies who are really starting to step up. They've always played as freshmen, but they've been, or
Okay.
since the freshman year, I should say, but they've had Maria that whole career. So now they're
Yeah.
getting to come into their own, and it's been fun to see that.
We're going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going
Okay.
to read a quote to you.
Okay.
I view coaching as an investment in growing the game. I think that an investment in the future of the game is important. Who said that?
Who said that? Oh god. Is that a pro
You
did I
you
say it?
said it.
Did I say it? I mean, I'm
You
sure I
said
heard
it.
from
You
somebody
said
else
it.
first, but I do think it's true.
There you go. Let's go. Run with it now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do think it's true because being able to if you don't it's no one gets better overnight. It's a
Mhm.
process. It's definitely gonna take time, and I mean, it goes back to the idea of not looking at the transfer portal as a way to retool every year, but investing your time developing players from the minute they step foot on campus in the hopes that by the time they're graduating, they're, one of the best players in their position in the country, and they know all the right things to do and how we want to play as a team, and they're moving us in the right direction.
Mhm.
And so I think that's what the investment is all about, and obviously growing the game. That is a common phrase in women's lacrosse right now. It's a very fast growing sport. When I moved to Florida, there were 5 teams in the conference at the time. In spring of 27, there'll be 10. So just
Mm.
seeing that growth within the state of Florida, plus we've added a bunch of Division 1 programs down here in that time too. I
Right.
think that's just awesome. I'm from New Jersey. That's definitely an area where I had the opportunity to play lacrosse, like as a younger player. I don't know that that was always the case in Florida, but in recent years, it definitely is. You're seeing kids playing in middle school now, certainly all throughout high school, and that's how the whole area gets better and we grow the game.
So I'm gonna give you this. I'm gonna ask a question, and I want you to think about it. Well, think about it before your answer, and
Okay.
I'll kind of lead you into it. What are the biggest barriers to lacrosse growing faster? What are the biggest barriers for women's lacrosse growing faster? Now, take a second because I'll lead you into it. The good thing for us in Florida, and obviously University of Tampa is your competition,
Mhm,
but right now it is good for them to be highlighted, obviously back-to-back champions,
mhm.
okay?
Yep,
Because it brings that attention to the state of Florida that we have a champion in the state of Florida, and also we have really good quality programs that revolve around and compete with that champion. Okay.
absolutely.
So now let's ask the question again and you give me your answer. With that said, what are the biggest barriers to lacrosse growing faster? Women's lacrosse growing faster.
I think as a sport, one of the issues that has been challenging has been that we keep changing the rules. And
Okay.
it makes it hard for people to, as fans, we talk about this a lot as a coaching body. It's hard for fans to know what's going on. And
Hmm.
oftentimes, some of these fans have to be coaches. There aren't a ton, and if I'm using Florida as an example, there is not the same amount of people available to coach high school teams, coach youth programs that have had playing experience as there might be on Long Island or even in New
Okay.
Jersey where I grew up. And I think that is a barrier for growing the game down here,
Hmm.
because you can't develop talent if you don't know the rules of the game, the skills that are needed. Everybody's out there trying their best, and I totally get that. But I think that the fact that there's not enough coaches and not enough people that really can understand the rules of the game to develop some of these younger players is for
Hmm.
sure a barrier in the growth. I'm not saying that's stopping people from playing. Certainly, we have a lot of people playing lacrosse, but to get them to
Right.
that next level and to make that transition to college a little bit easier, we for sure need more coaches at the youth level with lacrosse experience.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like it a lot.
Mhm.
Has the growth changed the way that you approach coaching or your program development? Has the growth of the sport changed the way that you approach coaching
Mhm.
or the program development?
Yeah, I think I'm going to touch on it in 2 different ways. The first one, kind of from the
Okay.
recruiting way, because that's sort of as program development.
Okay.
For the longest time, people were only recruiting out of hotbeds. It was, you bring in Long Island, you bring in Maryland, you get good right away, right? Those are supposed to be your most, I don't even want to say skilled, but I'll use skilled for lack of a better word, players,
Okay.
because they're from the areas that are lacrosse hotbeds.
Right.
Moving to Florida and seeing the growth has really changed it, because there is a lot of good lacrosse outside of those areas now. My roster has a lot of players from up and down the East Coast.
Mhm.
But Maria, to use her as an example, who just graduated, she originally was from rural Georgia, and then her
Okay.
parents moved to Jupiter, Florida. So she
Okay.
was not from a traditional hotbed, but she was a great player. So I think, not being unafraid to take somebody from an area outside of your normal areas has been a nice byproduct of the growth of the game because there are some really great athletes all over the place. And with exposure through, I mean, they're learning skills on social media. Watching that,
Mhm.
like that has definitely made players who might not get the coaching all the time at the high school level or even at the club level,
Mhm.
better players because it's just ideas for things to do when the stick's in their hands. So I
Mhm.
think being more open to where you're recruiting has definitely been something. Um, and I think just in general, we've everything has shifted with the growth of the
Oh.
game and the rules changes, and how how we're coaching, strategy wise has had to evolve tremendously because as the game has grown, sticks have evolved. There's all sorts of pockets and craziness now, and the pockets
Yep.
give hold that and kids can do things they've never done before. So as we're growing, we're also being able to get more creative with things that you do offensively, things that you do around the draw, just because you have the ability to do it now. Like you couldn't have done
Mhm.
it when I was playing and everybody's sticks were flat. I mean, there were still
Right.
kids with wooden sticks at that time. Like that's you're not seeing
Right.
that anymore. So I think that's changed it. And then the byproduct is people get more creative defensively because they have to stop these really dynamic offensive
Yep.
players.
Yep. Yep. I've got another quote,
Okay.
okay,
Okay.
that somebody said,
Mm.
all right?
Okay.
And I could feel the passion when I was reading this. One of the challenges we face is there isn't enough airtime allocated towards women's sports. Are we still an afterthought?
I think we're working hard to make it be different, but I do think it is definitely, not only is it airtime, but you saw this year with the D2, D3 finals, there were some coaches and players speaking up just about the quality of where we're even playing these games and the location of these
Mm,
games.
okay.
For us, it's always going to be a battle for the equality piece. As a sport, we're really working on the airtime piece. There are options to watch Division One games. We stream them at the D2 level and D3 level on our own like local websites. Uh, but I think, there's still some barriers to it. We have work to do there for sure. It's certainly a lot better than when I was in school, but that was a
Mhm.
million years ago. So I think we should be a little bit more evolved, now than we are. But I do know it's a big priority and everybody is working on that.
Where would be and you're let's just say you're the commissioner of the league, whatever. Perfect world. Where would your D2 national championship be? Where would you have it? What location? What stadium? Where would you go?
I think that the Division One team wanting to follow the men's team has been a model that has worked for them. But I think,
Okay.
finding the areas that are traditional areas that are drivable is a big one. I think it being in Salem, Virginia, people had issues with the fact that it was a far drive for most people that are, your traditional lacrosse areas that are trying to go to these games. So if you're
Okay.
able to put something, in the Northeast somewhere where there's fans that are going to there's more fans that would go to those games, that could be a good option. So
Okay.
I really think any of those locations would work, or even they used to do it a long time ago at Towson in conjunction with a recruiting event, and it was a D1 final, but I think if they did D1, D2, D3, that would be a really cool event, and you would definitely get
Mhm.
people, and that stadium was a little bit smaller than a football stadium would be, but it was filled, and I think it no matter what size the stadium is, if it's filled, that's just a really cool environment for the players who are playing.
So let me get it straight. What if you can sync the calendars up, right? To where you have your D1 and D2 Final Four the
Mhm,
same weekend somehow.
mhm,
So you're having either that let's just say that overlay people who are let's just say people are there for that D1
mhm,
competition, right? However, you're going to get also this D2 and now that somewhat packs the stadium.
mhm.
It probably gives you more airtime. You're going
Yeah,
to get fans that traditionally would not come to see you. And most of the girls who still want to play ball, a lot more of them are going to play D2 ball than they will Division 1 ball,
yep,
right? So now you're exposing the sport, you're exposing the league, and you're probably getting more viewership.
Yeah.
Is that a possible is my thinking crazy? Could they even do anything like that? Could they sync up those calendars, those championship calendars like that?
Yeah, and I would add Division 3 into that mix too, and I mean, that is what they do on the men's side, so I think
Okay.
it's very realistic to think we could do it on the women's side, and I know that, that's something that's come up in conversation a lot as a coaching body and something that we think would be really good for the growth of the sport.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
Mhm.
All right. So now let's get into a little bit of recruiting.
Okay,
Nothing is particular and specific, but in very general terms.
okay.
For St. Leo,
Mhm.
how do you find players? How do you find players?
Yeah, a couple different ways. I mean, it's definitely nice when they come to camps. I think that's an easy way to see them, especially with Florida and having players who are from Florida locally and who are not. Like getting them to campus is big because if you wouldn't be making an offer to somebody who's never visited campus. I think that would be kind of be a crazy ask. So
Okay.
get on campus, demonstrate that interest, be in front of the coach's face. That's one. And that's an easy way because, yes, we absolutely recruit at tournaments, but there's tournaments if you're going to a list, you're going with a list of 400 kids. There is no realistic way you're seeing 400 players in that weekend. But you would prioritize the players that have been to camp, the names that you've seen often. So, through emailing, we do watch film, but I think it's not the same experience as it is watching in person. That's a big
Okay.
priority for us is the in-person evaluation, so
Okay.
getting on and if even not just a prospect day, there's a couple different events that have happened. I know Tampa does the Top in Tampa around the President's Cup, we've done that the past few years. That's a smaller
Okay.
setting of college coaches getting to evaluate you there, and we coach you, that's a great option. We had the SSC Coaches ID Camp at the end of August, and that was another way for us to run some stations and work with you and see people who are very interested in being in Florida.
Hmm.
So those have all been ways. That's how I saw a lot of my 25s and 26s were at those events.
Okay. When the athletes come to these events and they're trying to stand out,
Mhm.
right? There's a bunch of girls there. All vying for your attention, and they're just trying to stand out. Who usually stands out, Coach?
So the players who work really hard, if you're
Okay.
yes, speed and height are two things that we can coach. So if you're really fast or really tall, or honestly sometimes even really short, like those are things that
Hmm.
stand out because we're like, okay, that's a note worth noting. I think the players who are hustling and scrapping and cheering on their teammates too, if we're in a scrimmage setting and you're a
Hmm.
big voice and you're talking, for goalies especially, are you talking in the clearing game? Do you have a presence in there? Any type of like hustle, scrappy thing, we're going to notice. Offensively,
Yeah.
are you pulling out these crazy dodges, finishing your shots? We will notice that. One thing that happens a lot in Florida that I think is unique to Florida, people come in from all over for camp, and they don't finish the camp because of the heat. I
Yeah.
would say being able to complete the camp is a big thing that we notice too, because we certainly notice the ones who can. Um, and I think if you really want to play in college here, the heat can't be part of your, a crutch for you. It's got to be something that you just embrace. So,
Yeah.
showing up and having prepared for the camps, I do think is something that maybe doesn't go into everybody's equation, but you want to be able to show your best, and you're not going to show your best if you haven't been training when it's hot. So I do think that's an odd criteria, but it does go a long way. We can't evaluate you if you can't play the whole time.
How do you balance raw ability, athletic ability, and stick skills versus lacrosse IQ?
Yeah.
Right? You've got an athlete that you look at, like, oh my God, she is freaking fantastic and
Mhm.
phenomenal. But you're like, okay, it looks like she's just a one-on-one player, or she missed this feed, or how do you balance that out when evaluating a player at a camp and or film?
Mhm.
And how do you do that? What Go ahead. Let me stop talking, let you run
Yeah,
with it.
no, I think when you make your class, like, you have to have a mixture of all of the things. So, I think the IQ is the most important part. You could be a little
Okay.
bit slower, a little bit shorter. You could have something that's not like, the most positive, feature if you're a smart player, because if you're a smart player, you're smart enough to know how to work within whatever that limitation might be.
Okay.
So we wanna go for the IQ piece first. And typically with IQ comes pretty good stick skills, but
Okay.
also your stick skills are going to evolve over time in college anyway, just because of the amount of touches you're getting compared to what you'd be
Mhm.
getting in high school at the college level. Um, but I think that where we have noticed, like, you know, you, the players who have like the natural abilities but maybe don't necessarily have the coaching, they take time. So you're gonna bring in 1, maybe 2 in a class because they're gonna take a lot of development to get there. The payoff could be
Mm,
unbelievable, but you also have to really do your work to get to know what kind of
mm,
person they are. Like, are they somebody who's just happy, because they've always been the best. They've been able to outrun everybody, so they haven't had to put in a lot of extra work. Or are they somebody who's maybe newer to the sport, super eager to learn, and their athleticism's off the charts? So okay, we can do some individual sessions with this player, put some time in, and by the time they're a sophomore, it's going to click in, and then they're going to go. So I would say you have to be a little more selective in the amount of those you bring into a class,
okay.
but it's worth the risk for sure.
I love it. Good answer. I like that a lot. Um, your traits and intangibles. Um, Let me just read this out loud.
Okay.
The traits and intangibles that have proven to be better indicators of long-term success than highlights and camp performances.
Hmm.
So which traits and intangibles do you, when you're evaluating prospects, you can see, yeah, this is going to be good long term versus, when you just see a kid on highlight film or she's got great stick skills or you see her in camp or she's really fast, which are better indicators of long term success for your program?
Yeah. I think honestly, the mental piece of it is probably the biggest indicator of success, and that has a couple different forms. So that's
Okay. Okay.
how much do you actually love lacrosse? Because
Mm,
there's a lot of it when you get to college, and you have to really love the sport to want to put in the work to keep getting better because especially as a freshman, like no one's going to come in as a freshman most likely and be the absolute best player on a team, know everything, be
mhm,
perfect, be ready to go. Like they have to love lacrosse enough to want to keep getting better and see a player recognize a piece of their game that they really like and want to emulate and then want to improve on. So I
mm,
think that part is big. The mental preparation of being able to handle everything on your plate is big. The mental part of being able to be a good teammate and recognize, like, okay, this she's playing these reps, these aren't my reps. I think that sometimes supersedes skill because it's just so different from high school. Everybody on your
yeah.
team was the best player on their high school team. So how are you
Yeah.
able to manage that and keep wanting to show up every day and get better? That is definitely a big indicator. So when we meet with players, there's just certain ones that you have a phone conversation with, talk to them in person throughout the recruiting process, and you're like, man, that kid just gets it. Like they can have conversations, they want to talk lacrosse, they love lacrosse. And maybe there's an aspect of their game that's not perfect, but you believe that with that type of kid, you can make that player better. And I think there's other players who sometimes you talk to, and you're like, Man, they've got every answer. They're the best player that ever lived in their mind." And I think that those players are the ones that will struggle because the game is evolving so much that everybody's still learning. I'm still learning. So to be, 18 years old and think you've got it all figured out, that will be a harder player to figure out. And sometimes those do have incredible stick skills and incredible skills. But the player that is willing to keep growing is definitely the player that's going to turn out to be better in the end.
What's that shell shock moment where girls come from high school and slash club into the college setting? What typically is that shell shock moment where like, oh, this is big time now?
Yeah, yeah. Usually when they go to, like, drive to cage for the first time and they run through everybody and they run into a brick wall defensively and they get, like, knocked off their feet, we always
Yeah.
joke there's always a freshman every fall who has, like, the consistent bloody knees because they're just the turf monster's getting them every 2 seconds. They're either trying to play too fast and they're just taking themselves out, or they're running into their defender. They're trying to do too many things at one time, but there is always one that you're like, "Oh, this kid's on the ground the whole time." Because they're just trying to play in like overdrive versus like just, all right, calm down, take a second, and do a little bit less. But yeah, you usually see it in the first practice right away, like who's going to be the ones that are going to take the whole fall to learn the hard way, like how to calm
Yeah.
down to play at college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you typically in St. Leo specifically, do you typically recruit for your system, or do you recruit the skill slash IQ that you talked about and then teach them and incorporate that into your system? Do you have the luxury of doing no, what's your usually your preference?
Yeah, I think that, sometimes we'll go out and say, okay, we really need a player at X who can, be a good feeding threat down there. We have a couple different sets we like to run. We're returning a player who's really good off the cut. We need someone that can feed to them. Sure. But
Okay.
I also think sometimes we develop our systems around who we have. If we
Mhm.
recognize we have a player who's really strong at something, we'll put something in that will help showcase that. And we tend to, and I feel like this is definitely a common theme. A lot of players are right hand dominant
Mhm.
and they want to run things from the right side. And then you bring in somebody who's left handed, and it's like everybody's brains explode because they realize they
Yeah.
can do the same thing from both sides of the field. So, trying to, incorporate, we've got two freshmen who are left-handed players that are both on the offensive side, and we keep running into their lanes because we're so used to clearing through for our one side, and learning how to play with them is something that we're continuing to evolve within our system because having that threat from both sides helps us out. But it is interesting how some players get so used to their one thing and they don't know how to necessarily work with other people. So we're always trying to figure out new ways to kind of keep our same guidelines that we've kind of always had, but incorporate, new skill sets that people might have. So I think it's a mix of both. Yes, there are certain things we look for specifically. Hey, we need someone that can do this. But then there's
Mhm.
other times where it's like, well, this is a really great player, so let's bring her in and let's find a way to make this work with what we do.
As I'm working with more athletes and talking to these college coaches, and I'm learning the game like you are
Mhm.
also. And one of my athletes was, I said, "What position do you play?" She's like, I play right wing. And my non-lacrosse brain kind of went into like, what the hell does that mean?
Yep.
Like, why is it right wing?
Hmm.
Because when I train, we
Yes.
train everything to work from any
Yes.
place on the field.
Yes.
Left, right, X, top, whatever. It doesn't matter where you are. You can execute
Yes.
this from it. You got to be able to play with both hands and run the same thing from the opposite side of the field. So
Mhm.
when she said right wing, I was like, so you're telling me that you primarily stay on just one side of the field
Yes.
for the most of the game. And if we flip this,
Yeah, you got
you
that.
might have a brain fart.
Mhm. Yes.
So that was because I didn't grow up playing lacrosse. So that term right wing really kind of screwed me up. Like, girl, you play wing. I don't
Yes.
care where the hell you play on that side. You can do the same thing from there.
Yes. No,
So,
we do laugh at how sometimes when we get emails, it's like, "I play left crease attack," and it's like, "Okay, but,
what?
do you just stand there? Like, you have to be
Right.
in other spots, so do you never push the ball in transition because you only will attack from behind the cage?" So I do think it's definitely interesting. We always just say, "There's attack, there's mid, there's D." That's
Hmm.
that's what it is. We don't need to hear, like, the crazy specifics. There's
Right.
attackers who dodge from up top, but as a defender, I get a lot, "Well, I only play crease defense." Well, what if your girl leaves the crease? Are you just can't defend her then? So I do think that you're selling yourself short if you're not able to play, around the crease, up top, drive, feed, cut, because in college, it would definitely be an expectation that you could do all those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right, we're gonna finish up here. I got two more
Okay.
questions, at least listed. At least listed.
Okay.
Accessibility, and we're talking about growing the game.
Yeah.
Accessibility, women's sports in general, and then accessibility specifically to women's lacrosse.
Okay.
Um, what are the here? We'll just use that word. What are the barriers again with that? Is it funding? Is it awareness? How does this game grow faster? And I guess we can even say specifically to the state of Florida, since we're both here.
Mhm.
What are those roadblocks with accessibility for girls to have more girls accessing the sport of women's lacrosse?
Yeah. I think from the high school level, I do think I said it a little bit earlier, but the coaching piece, I can't tell you how many emails I get right before the spring season starts from local high schools looking for a coach. Do you have any alums in the
Hmm.
area? Anybody willing to do that? And the hard part is, those jobs don't really pay anything. So most of these
Hmm.
younger alums aren't looking to do that. So I think again that just is a snowball of there's no coaching at the high school level, and if there is, it's somebody's parent who has to step in to do it just so the season can happen, and they're not
Hmm.
necessarily developing it. So that's for sure a barrier, and I think that's both just funding. as well as just not necessarily developing a feeder system. There's a lot of
Mhm.
turnover in club coaches too, and clubs. Like there's, every year there's new clubs that form and clubs that dissolve. But often a lot of the high school coaches would be involved in the club world. So having
Mhm.
some consistency there, I think, would really help at the youth level continue to grow that game. But here, especially, if you go up north, there's just those programs that have been around forever. You know that if you play for the Long Island Yellow Jackets, you know that what you're getting, you know that they've been around for like 30 years, and there's going to be coaches there that coach at high schools, and they're going to challenge you and push you. But every year in Florida, it sounds like there's new clubs, and the clubs that have been around for a long time are merging and changing ownership, and things are moving all around. And I think
Mhm.
without that consistency, it's really hard to get just coaching for your whole youth development down
Mhm.
here. And then I think at the college level, funding's always going to be something that we're battling, but I think
Okay.
that's not unique to women's lacrosse. I think that's just all sports in college. We're entering a whole new era on the D1 side with NIL and the roster caps now and opting in and opting out and revenue sharing. So I think that they'll probably, have some challenges too with needing to fundraise to recoup some of those costs. So I think that's always going to be part of the deal. But I don't think that's necessarily a barrier. I think that's just the reality of what it is as a college
Mhm.
coach and playing college sports. That's part of it. And I think lacrosse is fortunate that most people are pretty, they're used to that. They expect that. We're not exactly an inexpensive sport to begin with. So at
Mhm.
least you're not traveling summer to summer tournaments anymore once they get into college. So most are usually, pretty gracious to us with the fundraising side of things. So I wouldn't say it's a barrier, just a reality of life.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
All right. Last one.
Okay.
Here we go. Let's have a little fun with this.
Okay.
What regions hold the greatest untapped potential for women's lacrosse growth? Which regions? So obviously New Jersey, we're excluding New
Yep.
Jersey, we're excluding New York and Maryland. All right. So now we're going into let's kind of look under the covers a little
Mhm.
bit. Where do you think these untapped markets are?
I think it would be the South and the Midwest
Okay.
because they're starting to grow the most at the college level. So there's more kid like right now the Northeast, it's pretty saturated. There's
Yeah.
you're not hearing about colleges adding women's lacrosse in those areas. Maybe they're going Division 1, but they're not adding it. Most of the latest additions have been in the South, which means there's more graduates who are going to stay locally, who are going to be able to give back to the game and start coaching. But the South and the Midwest has a lot of athletes and totally different styles too. You kinda get some bigger, stronger kids, you get some leaner, faster kids down here, and I think that as they get sticks in their hands and start to play a little bit earlier, we're gonna really see those areas start to grow.
It is exactly kind of my observations.
Mm,
My daughter, she plays, and she's
mhm,
a talented youngster. And our team had been pretty talented. We're from Florida, so we
yep.
we like to boast and brag that we have our athletes.
Mhm,
However, we're not as skilled as the up north teams. But if you go athlete for athlete, we look really good. We
mhm.
can run, we're fast, we're good in the heat. It doesn't matter. So, until they try to slow us down with that real thick grass up
Yeah.
in like Pennsylvania, it's like this freaking thick,
Yeah,
right?
it
Like,
is.
what the hell are we playing on?
Yeah. No, it's so
So
true. You can't even see the ball. Yeah.
oh my gosh. But when we go to Georgia, it's fantastic because they're big, they're fast, they're athletic, right? Their stick skills are good. And we're coming from Florida. We need somebody to match our athletic ability. And we get that in Georgia, right?
Mhm.
But we'll get our behinds kicked traditionally when we play a lot of the really good up north teams because of the
Yep,
IQ,
yep, and
the
stick
ball
work.
movement
Yep.
and stick work, right? They're born we're in Florida, we're born with football.
Yeah,
Football is that is
yep,
what we do, right? That's what we do. But
yes,
Northeast, they're laxers.
yeah.
You can tell the investment is there by the parents and the community. Everything they do has translated to that point. So I agree with you that the Southeast is a very big untapped market,
Mhm,
and it's we when USF kind of popped up here, you're looking at like, okay, they're running and gunning
Mhm.
there. That looks like the Florida style. You pay
Yes.
more attention. You pay more attention to UT because they're winning big time now. And
Mhm.
now folks are going to be paying attention to St. Leo because of this interview. And I
Mhm.
think they're going to really be attracted to that run and gun style of ball that these let's
Mhm.
just say Southern
Yeah.
universities play.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too with the heat that has made it very different from up north, we can play faster because we have to play more people. I was a
Hmm.
midfielder up north, and the norm is that middies are playing like at least at that time was 60 minutes, and now they're definitely able to play for longer because it's not 90 degrees with 100% humidity. They can go a little bit
Hmm.
longer. The game's evolved now. There's more line changing, and positions are less traditional. But I think
Yeah.
down here, it's not uncommon to see 25 field players playing in a game. There used to be not even 25 people on a roster up north because you didn't need to have that many people. It was too cold to be keeping that many people on a sideline. So I think that with the elements that we battle consistently down here in the South, we've evolved our game into a much faster game. And, it's a more offensive game when it's faster too, I think. And that's made it more fun for people to wanna watch because everybody wants to see goals, and they wanna
Hmm.
see speed, and I think that that's why our style of play in the South, as the stick work, rises up to meet the speed, it's gonna be really, really explosive and fun lacrosse.
Let me ask this last question, just popped in my head.
Okay.
And this is not a UT or USF question, but this is more of a Florida area,
Mhm.
Tampa area question. Have you seen a benefit, a byproduct of recruitment for the marketability of USF,
Mhm.
the success of UT?
Mhm.
Okay. Meaning that these larger programs have now exposed your program to a larger audience because everybody can't play at South Florida. Everybody
Yeah.
can't play at Tampa, but you can still stay in the Tampa Bay area and play really good at St. Leo.
Yeah.
Have you seen that uh, byproduct from those larger programs?
I think yes, and I also think we've seen a huge byproduct of just like the rise in Tampa as a city in general. Like people want to be in
Okay.
Tampa. I think post COVID, so many people have moved down to this area. We're building new things left and right. It's an area that's like on the map. I think people have
Hmm.
vacation down here. They've been here before college,
Hmm.
and they're recognizing that it's a pretty fun place to be. So I
Hmm.
think, yes, they're definitely gonna look at the big name schools first, and then if they realize, "Okay, that might not be an option, but I still wanna be down here," or it might not be an option for me to go to USF because I wanna major in nursing, but I could play Division II lacrosse at a high level and major in nursing. That's how we've been able to get some really talented players because it's a cool area with programs that they wanna study, and it might be, too challenging to do all those things and play Division I lacrosse. So that's been a nice trickle down effect too. So I think those schools might help bring the eyes down here. But then also there's just the reality check of the process. Like, hey, I want to major in something that's pretty intense, but it's also hard to do that while playing Division I lacrosse. So I could play, quality lacrosse someplace else and do those things. I think that's impacted recruiting too.
And the reason I'm thinking that because when I was going through my football process getting recruited, we had a big offensive lineman, a 5-star at the time. And one of the schools that was recruiting him wasn't recruiting me.
Mhm.
Okay. But because
Yeah,
that particular school started coming to our school to recruit him, and then he saw us practice and he saw
you get on the
me
radar.
practice. They started right. I'm
Yep.
on the radar now. So my big dog, and I thought I was a big dog too, but I
Yeah.
wasn't the biggest. So he got me the attention that I
Yes.
wanted. Right. All right. So lastly, talk about your program. What's going on in the fall? What
Yeah.
prospect days you have coming up? Let's go shout them out.
Yeah, so we just had our prospect day last weekend, so we're kind of done with those for the fall, with the exception of we will be at the Top in Tampa, which is a big D2 showcase following President's Cup in November. We're really in our fall season right now. We played Florida State and Florida Southern last weekend to kick things off. This weekend, we're going to Florida Tech, then Embry Riddle, and then we're going to end fall ball with a date at UT. UT and Stetson will be there, so that'll be a fun one for us. And then November's all recruitment. So really we're in true team fall ball mode now as we're about to enter October. And then November, it's all eyes on the, 27, starting to look at some 28s. And then we open February 7th at home against Flagler to start our season.
Is the first impression I just thought of one more
Yeah, no,
question,
you're
coach.
good. Go for it.
If I am, let's just say maybe if I go to a camp, I go to a prospect
Okay.
camp, okay? I think I'm a solid lacrosse player. However, just this me personally, I think the first impression should be your best impression, right?
Okay.
So when you go see you're maybe a sophomore or you're a freshman going into your sophomore summer,
Mhm.
if you're ready to rock and roll, then that first impression for college coaches should be the one that you put on display. However, don't rush the process if you're a youngster because maybe the next time they see your name on that roster, they may kind of push it to the side a little bit because last time they saw you, it wasn't that great.
Mhm.
So push back on this with me. Do you like seeing a kid's development? Maybe they come to you and they're not as good the first time,
Mhm.
but you see them the next time and you've seen how they've worked. Or do you like, hey, I want that first impression. I want you to wow me.
I think the development is important, especially if you see them as like a 28, 29. Like right now, they're not
Hmm.
fully in their recruiting cycle yet, but it's about to be their time. So I think if
Okay.
there's a school you really want to go to and maybe they have multiple events, like we also know as coaches, there are certain seasons where you're a little bit better than others. Like we expect the first fall tournaments to be, a little bit rockier than the President's Cup because they've had a couple
Hmm.
under their belt. So we certainly understand like the growth that'll happen. And I think what's hard about our process being so early is we're committing, 27s now, and they've only played 2 years of high school. And I think that it's usually after junior year that people start to really figure things out because
Hmm.
maybe you're at a high school where there's a lot of talented upperclassmen and you're just now getting your shot as a junior because everybody graduated to get to like
Right.
really have a lot of responsibility. So there's always going to be the player that, because of our early process, gets overlooked because they just developed a little bit later. And I think it's for those players, it's super important to keep going to camps, get on campus, get in front of the coaches they really want, because we definitely see that as coaches and we value the development.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're ready to go and you really want a big name school and you want to go as a 28, 29 to camp and make a huge impression, sure, because then you're on their radar for a little bit longer. And as it comes time to start talking to club coaches more seriously about your class, your name's going to be in every conversation. So I think if you're ready to go, then absolutely you want to go. But if you're newer to the game or you're still developing your skill set, there's no harm in going, but just know you might have to go back again.
That's a good word.
Mm.
Coach, this is fantastic. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Preston. Thank you.
Yeah, go Lions, right?
Yeah, go Lions. Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good one.